truth wears the face that survives the telling. So who, then, becomes the monster when memory itself kneels? The question lingered like a wound that refused closure, and in its echo, Hinata Sakaguchi moved through the assembly hall like a blade that concealed its hunger beneath polished restraint. Her presence cutting through noise without raising a voice. Her silence gathering weight until even certainty bent around it. She had seen Rimuru Tempest depart, and now she stood amid the residue of that departure, where reports rose like ash and every voice carried fragments of a truth that refused cohesion. And when she finally exhaled, slow, deliberate, sovereign, it felt less like relief and more like a concession to inevitability. What in the world is going on? The question belonged to her voice, yet it echoed through every fracture of the city, because Hinata understood something the others merely sensed, that catastrophe had shed its randomness and embraced intention, that chaos itself had learned to think. She listened as they spoke of evacuations that unfolded with eerie smoothness, of civilians who obeyed as though guided by unseen choreography, of monsters whose strength defied reason, and she gathered it all not as panic but as pattern, her mind aligning fragments into something far more dangerous than fear: design. Fear, she knew, spread faster than flame, so she refused its language, replaced it with command. I want at least one paladin assigned to each shelter. Control the people, contain the chaos, shape perception before perception devours truth. Yet beneath that command, something coiled, an unease sharpened by memory because he had spoken. Prince Elric had risen not as a victim, but as a voice. His words spilling into the streets like a sermon crafted for desperation. My beloved countrymen. He had named her monster, had crowned her witch, had rewritten her existence into something the masses could fear with clarity. And Hinata, who saw through illusion with surgical precision, understood the deeper cruelty. That truth, in the court of public perception, served the loudest conviction. And then came the fracture. A prison riot? The report landed with the quiet devastation of inevitability, and she felt the structure of authority collapse inward, because he had escaped, had led them, had turned chaos into narrative, and somewhere within that unraveling lay the silent confirmation that King Aegil belonged to the past. So, we can't trust anyone in high government any longer. She spoke it with clarity that tasted like iron, and in that moment, truth ceased to be a foundation and became a weapon. Then, inevitability took form. Testarossa arrived like a whisper that carried execution within its elegance, her presence bending the atmosphere with quiet authority as she confirmed what Hinata had already begun to understand, that the chain of command had shattered, that control itself had become a fiction maintained by those who refused to look too closely. Hinata adapted. But then came the pettiness that sharpened the blade. Reiner stepped forward with a vendetta too personal to remain small, too theatrical to remain contained. His desire for revenge dressed as justice, his need for spectacle masquerading as truth. And Hinata saw it instantly, not as chaos, but as arrangement. This whole thing was a setup. The realization formed without hesitation, and when the final pieces aligned, experiments, angels, monsters that healed beyond logic, she leaned forward, her fingers tapping with the quiet rhythm of comprehension. What if this chaos is exactly what he wants? Silence answered her. And in that silence, revelation crystallized. This was not a crisis. It was architecture. The storm tightened, and Hinata stood at its center, aware that every choice now carried the weight of consequence, that every step forward wrote history in ink that refused erasure. So what do you intend to do? The question reached her from Testarossa. Hinata answered without pause, because hesitation served the enemy. We're gonna have to go and deal with them personally. She understood the trap with brutal clarity, that if she fell, the lie would solidify into truth, that if she fled, suspicion would calcify into certainty. And still she chose to step forward, because abandonment would fracture something far greater than her own survival. That won't work. She dismissed escape with quiet authority, because she saw beyond the immediate battlefield into the fragile architecture of trust that held nations together. And she understood that if the dignitaries fell, if the Congress shattered, then the world itself would tilt toward war. Nikolaus saw it then. He saw the inevitability in her resolve, the unyielding certainty that refused compromise, and though unease lingered in his expression, he conceded, Not to her argument, but to her nature. Others followed. Even hesitation yielded. Hinata gathered them, her authority weaving through the room like an unseen current. Let's decide how we'll divide up the roles. She claimed Raynor without ceremony, without pride, because some threats demanded a personal conclusion, because some narratives required a decisive ending. Testarossa watched, her smile composed, her fury refined into something far more dangerous than rage. I'll join you. Elegance masked lethality, and within that calm declaration lay the promise of annihilation. Others stepped forward too quickly. Arno Fritz, their eagerness shaped by fear they refused to name, their urgency driven by the quiet terror of failing something far greater than themselves. Hinata misread it. Testarossa understood it. And so she granted them aid, her servants moving like shadows cast by intent, while her focus sharpened toward the architect behind the chaos. Anyone who acted foolishly needs to be given their just punishment. Hinata's voice carried cold finality, and Testarossa's gaze gleamed with something almost reverent. Win first. Rewrite truth later. And so they stepped forward, fully aware of the snare, embracing it as hunters who recognized that sometimes the only way to break a trap involved entering its jaws. The city unfolded before them like a promise betrayed. The castle stood shattered, its silhouette torn against a sky that seemed to recoil from its own reflection, and fire consumed the streets below with a hunger that mirrored intention. This is going to be a mess to clean up. Hinata admitted it without flinching, her composure holding even as the scale of destruction revealed itself, while Nicholas answered with a grim clarity that bordered on devotion. We'll see a lot more damage than this. Faith anchored him, not in the city, but in her. They advanced. Testarossa moved beside Hinata, untouched by ruin, her elegance refusing contamination, while Mas and Cien obeyed with silent precision. Just go into search mode. Mas obeyed instantly, scattering himself into unseen fragments, a living network stretched across the battlefield, aware that he would become the first to fall, and still he embraced the role without hesitation. Loyalty here spoke through action rather than declaration. Hinata observed, "You think all this furor is just a decoy?" Testarossa smiled. "I think so, yes." The implications settled between them with quiet certainty. That destruction itself served as distraction, that chaos existed to misdirect, to divide, to lure. Hinata traced the threads quickly, dividing the West, targeting Rimuru, or Masayuki? Masayuki entered the equation as possibility, as vulnerability as bait, and Testarossa acknowledged Hinata's precision with something that resembled approval. Rimuru had already been drawn away. That alone revealed intent. They must have prepared a pretty big lure for him. Names surfaced. Feldway Michael, each carrying the weight of unseen power, each suggesting a scale of conflict that stretched beyond immediate comprehension. Yet Testarossa's certainty remained unshaken. He would prevail. He always did. Still, another truth emerged. If Masayuki stood as the true target, then everyone here served as expendable pieces within a larger design. Bait. Hinata accepted it. We don't need to play along, do we? Testarossa's smile sharpened. We'll just take care of them all. And so they advanced, not as prey, but as something far more dangerous. Silence fell with intention. Hinata seized it. Nicholas, you stay here. The command carried layers: survive, endure, witness, and Nicholas understood each one, bowing with quiet acceptance. Good luck to you. She stepped forward into the ruined square, where nearly 20 knights stood waiting, their stillness oppressive, their presence shaped by something unnatural. Raynor greeted her with a grin sharpened by arrogance. It's about time you showed up. Hinata studied him and recalculated. He had changed. His aura surged with violence that eclipsed expectation, stronger than her. The realization settled without panic, because she processed truth without resistance. Her gaze shifted. Elric stood nearby, hollow authority draped in royal posture, while the knights beside him radiated something engineered, something refined beyond human limitation. Then came the distortion. Vega lounged by the fountain, laughter spilling from him like rot-given voice. Ain't we lucky? His presence warped the space itself, vast and grotesque, an embodiment of excess that defied balance. Hinata measured him once. Zero chance to win. Testarossa stepped forward. Disgusting. She claimed him with quiet finality, as though inevitability itself could be dismissed through will alone. The battlefield shifted. Hinata exhaled slowly. Then I take Raynor. So, Who's going to be my opponent? Her tone carried deliberate provocation because she understood the audience watching below, understood that pride would bind him tighter than chains ever could. Reiner took the bait. That's how much of a fool you think I am. How about I prove my worth by beating you here? Hinata met his gaze, unwavering. The battlefield split, the narrative sharpened, and the duel began.